Welcome, everyone, and I'm glad you joined us today to stay curious on July 2nd, 2025. I'm Mark Marquette, and I'm broadcasting from the studios inside the American Space Museum in downtown Titusville, where we preserve the birth of America's space age like nobody else on the planet. We're just 10 miles away from the launch pads at Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Space Force. And across from me and my partner for over 5 years of bringing you these video podcasts is Marty Winkle. Marty, hello. Marty worked on our lunar module that we'll be talking a lot about with Apollo 11 and 15 launched in July. So, Marty, how you doing in this hot, stormy July day in our Space Coast?
I'm doing okay considering that it's hot and humid and a little bit uncomfortable, but doing okay.
It is, and we're supposed to have a uncomfortable 4th of July weekend coming up here. Hope that you all enjoy it. Of course, the museum is going to be closed in honor of our nation's 249th birthday of America. So we'll be ramping up on July 5th for the 250th, I'm sure. The sesquibicentennial, I guess it's called. So that'll be a lot of fun, but it's always fun to be around family like I'm going to be in Tennessee over the weekend, so don't come by and rob my house or anything. But I've been playing around with a little AI, artificial intelligence, Marty, and this is an AI generated in about 30 seconds when I asked for the space shuttle and 4th of July fireworks. So it's a little bit dangerous, but it is a little bit fun too, Marty. And we'll be seeing another AI generated photo to end the day and some more as we've gone along to keep pace with the 21st century. But looking back a little bit in the last century, some of the beautiful shuttles of the month of July launched. There's the one that's in orbit now, STS-94, the Deja Vu repeat. And on July 4th is the only rocket launch of America's crewed space flight history, and that's STS-121. But appropriate with, speaking of the shuttle, in Apollo, we're going to talk about Apollo 11. Kevin Hostrater built these 3D models that we're going to put on display, Marty, here at the American Space Museum. You know Kevin Hostrater, I believe is how you say his name.
Kevin Hostrater.
Kevin Hostrater, a German name for sure. I think the best way to handle this is putting my hand in the 3D printed F1 engine there that Kevin is loaning the museum to put on display. They certainly do look beautiful. And as I go over here, I'm going to grab the SSME very delicately. Yeah, I think the best way to handle that is like putting it on like a boxing glove. Space Shuttle main engine that Marty was a computer manager on this little baby here. What do you think, Marty? Looks pretty accurate.
Oh yeah, it's an excellent job. Yeah.
And Kevin did a show on our program here. Just put Kevin HOS and it'll probably bring it up. And so we're going to proudly put these over by our Apollo gallery. I was inspired to do that when I saw a bunch of charts that had all the plumbing and everything on it, so to speak. So thank you, Kevin Hostrater, for... Well, Marty, you thank him for me then. Again, I had lunch with him today and his lovely wife, Lisa Malone.
It's Kevin Hostrater.
Hostrater. Okay. Well, we're going to get his name spelled right on the plaque that we'll put up there.
Yeah, he'll do it phonetically also.
Just some of the improvements we're doing here at the American Space Museum, including Mitch Rothman is helping us raise money for a new renovation of his space shop. There already is something called Space Store, so we'll probably have to go with Space Shop that you'll be able to walk in and not pay admission to the museum to help us out there. So Robert Law likes the models, and good afternoon, Jubilee. And then Mark Usiak is on board. Good to see Mark and Carlton Bailey. We'll see a picture of Carlton with one of our birthday girls today, Steve Jokums. I know you like those models. Doug Forrest is in Los Angeles. saying, we've got Endeavor. Who's going to have Discovery, huh? There's some wrangling going on about where Discovery will end up. It's at the Udvar Hazy Smithsonian Museum that I've actually seen, and they claim that there's money in the administration congressional bill to move it to Houston, orbital OV 103. So this will be an ongoing story here the next couple of days. So who else want to say hi to there? Thank you all for joining us today. Tom Celentano in Furedo Asako Joe. Okay. Yes, thank you very much. We're going to have a show today that's going to take you out to the back entrance of the solar system and back again. Okay. And with some space news today and a couple birthdays. And so let's kick that off with Marty. I didn't look. The moon is, this is Wednesday. So the moon is, we got my moon up there. The moon is 8 days old, Marty. So where is it in the night sky? To talk like an amateur astronomer. If it was clear tonight, where would the moon be in the sky? At 8 days old.
You asking me?
Yeah.
I'll give you the same answer I gave you yesterday.
Well, the hint is, full moon is when the sun sets. The moon rises for full moon. So it's just past first quarter moon. So it's going to be nice and bright in the sky. You're going to see it for a few hours after sunset. Hopefully you're taking advantage of these long days, golfing, gardening, tennis, pickleball, maybe just sitting in a lawn chair reading a good book, swatting a few mosquitoes. So a good time to get out and look at the moon with binoculars, as that Terminator will show you a lot of detail of craters and mountain ranges. And then it's creeping towards full moon phase. It'll be next Wednesday, I think. So maybe Tuesday night. So to talk like an astronomer, it is to know what phase the moon is in, because it's when from 12 to 17 days, it's going to have too much moonlight in the sky to see some of the dark galaxies, nebula, star clusters that astronomers treat like treasure chests up in the sky when they're stargazing. Well, here's another star of our show, actually, Terry White. And what do you think he's beside, Marty?
It's a Corvette, and I believe it's Neil Armstrong's Corvette.
That's correct. Neil Armstrong's blue Corvette. Terry, a few years ago, standing beside it at some event. I don't know much history about it, what year it was, but Steve Jokums is going to probably tell me, because he knows a lot of that stuff. Of course, it's probably a 1968, something like that, wouldn't you think, Marty? You know anything about it?
No, I don't know, but I was guessing the same thing, Mark. Could be as early as 67. It should be no later than 69, but I would go with 68 as a
not
guess.
Really known as a hot rodder. I bet it has, Armstrong had a lot of low mileage on that. We did a story a couple years ago where it had popped up that somebody bought it, found it in a barn or something, was restoring it. But looks in pretty good shape there, as does Terry White there. And invited, Terry's getting a show together for July for talking about the shuttles of the month of July. So he'd probably get him to maybe talk about what he knows about the woodpecker that had Don Thomas's mission, STS-70, on that ET tank. Well, let's get the birthdays up there. Yeah, Marty.
1969.
1969, okay. Is that what Steve Jokum says too? Yeah. Steve says it's 67. But Marty did a fact check on it and comes up with 69.
Hang on a sec.
All right. We're got a birthday today, and I guess I didn't put the birthdays in there. And I left I'm going to go over here and get the birthday notes. That is Linda Godwin. All right. Linda Godwin, 73 years old today. Born in Cape Girardeau, Mississippi, Missouri, growing up in Jackson, Missouri. And this is her right here. There we go, Linda Godwin. Saw her out the Astronaut Hall of Fame scholarship about 2 months ago. Linda logged over 38 days in space. She has 10 EVA hours on 2 spacewalks. She has a doctorate degree in physics and is a teacher at the University of Missouri in her retirement. She was married to astronaut Steve Nagel, who died of cancer in 2014. And he was commander of her first mission, which would have been Atlantis STS-37. She was on the Gamma Ray Observatory deploy in the month of July. Okay. And she was on the 3rd docking of the Mir space station on 109, which had to have been exciting. The small space station it was. Crews 3 and 4 were exchanged. So Linda Godwin, happy birthday to you. She's a real stargazer at the University of Missouri, where she's got a doctorate in physics. So she is 73 years old today. I guess I stuck that in the wrong place. And also a happy birthday to Wendy Lawrence. And you see her name tag there is too short. She's the first female Navy Academy graduate to go to space, and her father, Vice Admiral William Lawrence, was a Mercury astronaut finalist and was over the Navy Academy when she graduated. And there's a beautiful story about them I'll talk about here just a second. But Wendy's one of our favorites to go out to Space Center. There's Nick Thomas with her a couple years ago when Artemis was out the launch pad. She has visited the Mir space station twice, and STS-86, the 7th docking, and STS-91, the 9th and final docking. And when I asked her about that, any difference, there she is in training in the spacesuit. I go, what was the difference? And she goes, nothing, except it got more cluttered. She goes, they don't throw away nothing on that Mir space station. Her last flight was 114, return to flight. And then she was also on the Astro 2 mission, on a lot of very interesting missions. And she spent a lot of time in Kazakhstan and Star City. There, the customary, I'm cold in Star City with my big Russian hat on there. And, of course, training to go to the Mir space station was part of that. And like I said, we visited her several times out there as Marty and Anita Truex, coordinating our office stuff here. She was wearing a mask that day. A lot of flu and stuff going around. This was not a COVID period. This was another period. But Marty, you've gotten quite a few autographs off of her. You got anything to say about her?
No, I like that she's short.
Yeah.
I mean, she's one of the few astronauts shorter than me, so I like that. But no, she's great. Just like so many of the astronauts. Just so friendly, so easy to talk with.
Yeah, she's very easy to talk with and enjoys being that. Her father and her were estranged for a while. And how they got back together is a beautiful little story that we highlighted last year on her birthday. And it was late in his life that they kind of made up over things that was probably silly at the time, but she always looked up to her father and felt like she never met his approval, even as an astronaut. I think was part of that. So happy birthday to you, Wendy Lawrence. Hope you get a lot of love from all your astronaut friends, and this guy too. There's Carlton Bailey, CB, out seeing Wendy with Fozzie, his Godzilla man there, and we want to get her at Shuttle Fest for sure, and I'm trying to maybe effort that this year if we get some Mir astronauts coming. She'd be a good one, though she didn't stay on the Mir space station. She was going to, and she was too short for the Orlan spacesuits of Russia. Okay, she was just too short. Her arms wouldn't even get into gloves right. So David Wolf was chosen to go up to the space station, and that was a kind of a last-minute decision, I think, too, by the NASA administrator to do that, who I'm thinking at the time was Dan Golden, but it could have been Mike. I'm pretty sure it was Golden, but that doesn't matter. And CB's always shooting me stuff to keep me on my toes and share, and he shared this with me. Blue Origin launches 6 tourists on suborbital trip from Texas. Okay. A little Yahoo post that he sent me for the latest of the suborbital Karmanauts is what we call them. But here Yahoo, they may call themselves astronauts, but they're calling them 6 tourists, Marty, on a suborbital trip from the Texas launch pad of Blue Origin. And drove by Blue Origin today and saw that they're painting some artwork on the side of their building where they're constructing Blue Moon, the lander that they just did. But boy, we've been watching that thing build up for 8 years, and they've launched 1 rocket, and that didn't go to. It wasn't a nominal second stage launch for sure. So, but 6 tourists, huh? Yahoo. I wonder what they call the Gulf of Mexico or America, Marty. Well, let's get a little Artemis news under our belt here, as that is part of this super duper bill of President Trump's budget that the Senate was split on 50-50, so the vice president cast the final vote. And I want to remind you that the space shuttle squeaked by 1 or 2 votes. It was not a popular thing, and look at how the benefits are reaped for all mankind through that thing. What was added is $10 billion to the Artemis architecture, which includes funding for a couple more Space Launch System rockets. I don't know about that because it costs about $4 billion to launch each one, but money for the orbiting station around the moon called Gateway. All right. And Musk, CEO, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, and Jared Isaacman, who was kicked to the curb as NASA administrator for some reason, political, of course. They are calling this a big mistake because of the expendable rocket that the SLS is. You're just throwing money away. But a total of $24 billion with a B has been poured into the Space Launch System production so far in our latest effort to go to the moon. And the space companies mainly benefiting have been Boeing, L3 Harris, Aerojet, Rocketdyne, and Northrop Grumman, which leads construction of the major components. All major companies in our backyard, Marty, in Melbourne, that have no clue who the American Space Museum is, and the shoulders of the giants that we represent that they're standing on. But we're working on it. My own humble opinion here. So during the recent confirmation hearings with the Senate, massive sums were questioned, but they have added more money that could mean Artemis 4 and 5. Artemis 2 is going to wave at the moon, hopefully this spring, from 3,000 miles with 4 astronauts in it. It's just basically going to be a free trajectory testing the heat shield and systems for about 10 days. And then STS-3 is supposed to land on the moon, SLS-3, on the South Pole, which we've never even gone around pole to pole. There's no emergency plan if something went wrong. It's a very long 6-day orbit, I understand, pole to pole. But there's money to go forward with the Gateway Station that was supposed to have been axed in this budget. And also, so it mentions some new funding includes $700 million for a new Mars telecommunications orbiter. Now we're talking, Marty, you've heard me talk about the telecommunications orbiter that we don't have orbiting Mars. So how are we going to think about putting people on Mars when you're not going to be able to have a reliable transmitter back to Earth because you can't rely on those 10, 12-year-old orbiters there now. And also, more money to SpaceX, for the development of a spacecraft to deorbit the International Space Station at the end of the decade. To deorbit the space station is basically $1 billion, 843 million. So you know it's going to be a billion by the time they get to the end of the decade here. And it has to be deorbited in whole. I found that out myself, talking to astronaut Bob Cabana, who is running our country, his nation, our space program under Bill Nelson. He was Bill Nelson's assistant administrator and doing a lot of stuff. But Bob Cabana says it all has to come down together. They can't break it up in pieces. They can't salvage pieces for another space station. And it's very complex. And he insinuated to me that astronauts may have to stay up there and depart like a day before they deorbit it, because all kinds of things have to be set, switches, solar panels arranged just right. So, all right, getting maybe to the moon with Artemis, but at least some whisper hope of having some more money. But another story that I picked up on my news feed talks about the China 10-1-2 update. This is a new spacecraft launched May 30th. It was launched May 29th. The probe was orbiting the Earth in good condition, and it took some pictures of the Earth and the moon. We'll see here in a minute, checking out their alignment and everything, because this is going to a asteroid named Kama'awala, a quasi-satellite of Earth that could be a fragment of the moon. And it will collect samples from the asteroid's fast-spinning surface before returning them to Earth in 2027 using a re-entry capsule. So this is a quick going out to an asteroid that is not in the asteroid belt, it's closer to Earth. And it's going to harvest some of the material from it. This is suspected to maybe be part of the moon that blasted off by a big asteroid in its early days. And I'm sure it's not very big, but I'm trying to see. They're not giving a size here in the news story I grabbed there, but can't turn away from a picture of this beautiful blue and white marble that we call home. And just so gorgeous. And if you're an alien, why in the world would you not want to come visit us? And here's the moon at the same distance, looking about a quarter the way on there. Looks like it's kind of the side that we look at. I can see Mare Crisium up there at top, up there. So China not just vowing to go to the moon by 2030 and having a systematic plan to do that, but also now going further into the solar system to bring back pieces of a satellite of Earth. It's in an orbit that's between the Earth and Mars, and to see their capabilities of doing stuff like that. So, well, something in the news that there's the spaceship and a Chinese mission profile there on the left. Well, this piece of artwork that Marty chose as our backdrop today on our green screen shows a artist's impression of what it would be like on the dwarf planet called Sedna, looking back at the sun. And it would probably see a dusty little ring around the sun from this, because it is far, far away, over about 10 times the distance of Pluto. But Sedna is making its closest approach to the sun in its 10,000-year orbit, all right, happening in July of 2076, all right? So 50 years from now, they're wanting to make sure that a probe could get there with some cutting-edge technology in 7 to 10 years. Because this comes from so far in our solar system, you're going to see this in a second, that coming this close will warm it up enough that maybe it'll outgas some things like a comet, all right? And there is a rocket to do that you're going to hear a lot about, the direct fusion drive rocket engine, all right? A fusion rocket, nuclear fusion powered nuclear rocket could produce enough thrust and electrical power to even go to Mars in 2 weeks, they say. Well, let's do a little look at these. Sedna is what we call a dwarf planet that we call Pluto now. And this is a picture of the dwarf planets before Pluto was passed by New Horizons 10 years ago, coming up in a few weeks. Quoar and Sedna were big objects seen in the Kuiper belt, where a think asteroid belt between the Mars and Jupiter, an asteroid belt of rocky rubble that would only make up something the size of our moon, but still maybe as leftovers from creation. So the Kuiper belt is way out where Pluto is, past Neptune, and it is a rocky world of frozen bodies, and some are pretty big. 7 or 8 of them were discovered, even one maybe bigger than Pluto. Therefore, that is why Pluto is a new class of planet called dwarf planet. All right. So that shows you the ratio, the Earth, the Moon, Pluto, and a couple of these dwarf planets. But Sedna is very interesting, 1,000 miles across. Now, Marty, in the upper left-hand corner here, is the solar system out to Jupiter, the planet Jupiter. And the yellow in the middle is asteroids. So that's out to planet Jupiter. Now, on the right box at the top right, Jupiter is inside. The small inner circle there that's red, the very innermost, is Jupiter. And the outer solar system of the Kuiper belt, Pluto, is the purple outer orbit. All right. So it's way, way past Jupiter, Pluto, and Neptune. You see the blue circle. Then you go below it, and what is there is the center box right over here. That center box is the one above it. So that's Pluto's orbit, far out in the center box. And this is Sedna. It is in a 10,000-year orbit where Pluto's like 250 years. 10,000 is highly elliptical, acts more like a comet. Maybe it's a giant comet. That's why we need to explore it. That'd be super duper huge at 800 miles across. And then on the left, finally here, is this far square. You see the red circle of Sedna. This is Sedna's orbit that takes 10,000 years to go around once the sun. Inside the Oort cloud, O-O-R-T, named after a Danish astronomer who theorizes that there is like frozen sphere of comets around our solar system that is 100 billion miles away. Now, the Voyager spacecraft have not gone through this Oort cloud, and they won't for maybe, I don't think, another century. So it's still theorized, but this is where we think the cold matter of the solar system's creation gravitated. So this is a look at our solar system and how vast it is and how insignificant we are. Well, this rocket that they're talking about, the Direct Fusion Drive, DFD rocket, is being developed by Princeton University's Plasma Physics Lab. They're planning to test it in space in 2027. So this fusion-powered rocket engine could produce enough electricity and fuel to get us quickly to Mars and other places. So we'll see how that works out for us there. And the other propulsion technologies are trying to cut travel time down to Sedna by more than 50% than traditional travel ways. It would take, how many years does it say it would take to get to Sedna under right now? Now, the Voyager 1 and 2 spacecraft are 15 and 12 billion miles away so far. So going 7 billion miles to Sedna, that has taken 50 years for those spacecraft almost to travel a little over a third of the way further than Sedna. I think it was going to take 80 years, something like that, conventional methods to get out there. Not 80. We've gone past that. It's like 25 years. That's what it is. So to cut that time down and meet Sedna and learn some stuff, and here for all of you rocket engine types, I'm sure you're reading some of the pieces and parts of this direct fusion drive engine that is becoming kind of the darling of the ways to get out to space quick. So, all right, one final story here to entertain you all, and glad that Cliff Watson's with us from Pomona, Australia, and Jim Caffey's watching, the astronomers. Thank you, Jim. Dave Stange and Mia is watching with Nick. Hey there, our fans there up in Michigan. And got Mitch Rothman and Nick Sedler, Tom Usiak. Good talking to you, Tommy. Tom Celentano. Fure Do Usako Joe. Mark Usiak. Carlton Bailey. Robert Law. Steve Jokums. Doug Forrest and JB Jubilee. All I hope enjoy and stay curious today, and will tell their friends to do so. I'm going to take us out in our backyard and give us a little backyard astronomy lesson. Since the 1800s, astronomers were mystified by the discoveries of stars that displayed highly unusual emission lines. That's the spectrum that tells the fingerprints of an object emitting light, like stars. Well, this was only after 1868, all right, just 160 years ago, scientists discovered the element helium. And astronomers were able to explain the broad emission lines due to the presence of helium in these stars, all right? So over time, these stars have become known as Wolf-Rayet stars, after a gentleman named Wolf was a French astronomer, and helium was first detected by the French scientist Georges Rayet and others. I'm going to show you a picture of a Wolf-Rayet star here to beautify us in the blue, in the middle there. Astronomers came to understand that these were central stars within planetary nebula constantly ejecting gas at a high velocity. And this gives Wolf-Rayet stars a distinctive appearance in the night sky. So, an astronomer named Chris McGrew has shared a photo of a variable Wolf-Rayet star 6,000 light years away from Earth. That's this blue here, right in the middle is the star, in the constellation of Cygnus, which he captured from a dark sky location in southwestern New Mexico. And this is probably the diameter of the moon, half a degree across in the sky, so it covers a lot of the sky. And right in the center, you see one little star inside this blue envelope. The stellar winds are blowing out the blue shell of ionized oxygen gas visible in the middle of the image. This is a deep sky object that has been imaged countless times. And why? Because ever since people, when they see it for the first time, Mr. McGrew said, it's been high on my list to capture in my astrophotography. For years, I didn't have the skies or time, but I finally got the chance to go after it. And this is the pursuit of a lot of backyard astronomers that are really using cutting-edge digital cameras now. They don't even look through the eyepieces of some of these cameras anymore, telescopes. I do. I'm kind of old school and like looking at the photons with my own eyeballs. But capturing things with today's technology and can pierce even the light pollution. But when you go away from the light pollution, like Mr. McGrew did here in the middle of the desert, he pulled off a Wolf-Rayet star that's just so spectacular. And now you know a little bit about one of the many different kinds of stars out in the sky. Well, Marty, hope you've enjoyed today's show, and we're not going to have a show on Friday. We're all going to be enjoying and staying curious with our families and fireworks and good things like that, celebrating our great nation. And I will be back Tuesday. Marty's going to reprise a show. Maybe on Monday I'll give him that liberty, as he's got a nice family he spends time with. So, Marty, I've been getting into artificial intelligence, okay? Because I'm just not smart enough. I need some artificial intelligence sometimes, And so I've been making images with artificial intelligence, AI. So I asked my AI Gemini to make me an image of the space shuttle orbiting Earth with fireworks in the sky. And by golly, it did. There it is. So, though that's completely impossible because there's no way fireworks would operate in the vacuum of space like that. But nonetheless, kind of an interesting image and it's an accurate shuttle, that's for sure. And what's to say on the side? Kadar. Not sure what that means. Hope that's not some AI hidden bad word or something in there. But let's go to this AI image I made. I told you of the shuttle celebrating fireworks there. We are about the shuttle, disgustingly so at times, because we love our space shuttle and all of our astronauts, like Kay Heyer, who I saw today at a NASA luncheon I'm privileged to attend, and gave Kay a big hug. She helped take the cupola up to the International Space Station. So, Marty, you're raising your hand for something there?
Well, to go back to the previous image, it looks like the shuttle has just 2 engines. So it's not very accurate.
It has what?
2 engines.
Oh my gosh, it does have the wrong engines on it. Yep. There you go. Good eye. Doing these AI things would be like finding the missing thing. Yes, it's got 2 engines instead of 3. I really don't see any ohms pod nozzles there either on there. So yeah. So I was kind of looking at the black and the split on the rudder and the back and the stabilizer and stuff. But yeah, you're right. So good eye there, Marty. You can't believe none of what you see unless of what you hear, folks. Investigate it for yourself, like backyard astronomers do with our Wolf Rayet image there. So hope you have a safe 4th of July. Tomorrow we'll do a couple more things to get ready for our guests next week. We got 2 book guests next week on Wednesday and Thursday, and going to effort the wonderful Bob Seek on some shows in July to talk about the approach and landing tests of the shuttle that he was very involved in. So, well, thank you everybody for watching today. And again, thank you for telling your friends to share and even donate to the American Space Museum, not just your time, but maybe a little bit of money once in a while. So appreciate Marty for a great Streamlabs job. We will do it again tomorrow to keep you staying curious. Until then, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you in Titusville to bridge the space between us.